Hi, hello. Welcome to my year in review, at least for reading anyways. I have my handy dandy notebook here, and I'll be reading off the questions. They'll be on the screen too, and tell you what books correlate with what. Are we ready? I'm ready. Here we go. How many books have you read? 82. There's about 7 of those that are rereads. Honestly, there's probably about 10 of those that are rereads. But 82 books according to Storygraph. Most read. Romance, which is quite the shocker for me, even though it shouldn't be. But like, to tell myself 4 years ago that my main genre would be just romance is wild. But like, everyone needs a happily ever after in this day and age. Am I right? My longest and shortest book. My longest book is Stranger Skies at like 595 pages. My shortest one is Hot for Slayer at like 94. A debut I really loved was a poem collection called I Hope You Remember. And a second book just came out a few weeks ago, and I did pick that up. I have not read it yet, but I did love I Hope You Remember because I follow her on TikTok and I love the way she speaks and like says her like poems, and she narrates the audiobook, which is perfect. Backlist book. Okay, my favorite Backlist book has to be God of Fury, and at the time that I was reading it, is Backlist just for books that are later in the year or only for years that are not now? Because if so, then it's just God of Fury. I read that book 3 times. If it's for something like later in the year, I guess, you know what? Strike that. Backlist is in fact books that have not been released in this year, which my number one favorite one was God of Fury. Like I said, I read it I reread it like 3 or 4 times. A book that lived up to its hype. Here's the thing. I do my best not to watch things that have books that I'm interested in too much, because I feel like obviously hype ruins the vibe. But the one thing that did not get ruined is that Lights Out really is, especially the audiobook, lives up to the hype. That audiobook is so fucking funny. So much so that I really do think it set up book 2 for massive disappointment. Because I think people really wanted that energy in book 2 when the people in book 2 are entirely different than book 1. And book 3, I feel like, is not ever going to match that level at all. And it really, like, people really just didn't like book 2. I enjoyed book 2. And book 1, Lights Out, really had me. It lived up to the hype. I was like, yeah, I get it. I get it. A book that didn't. I don't have any. There are books that disappointed me just collectively for them existing in the world. But nothing that I was excited about and then was disappointed by the result. Biggest accomplishment? Here's the stitch. I feel like most people put like finishing a trilogy or their longest, biggest book. And I'm going to put Sunrise on the Reaping because I knew that book was going to be sad, and still I made myself read it. Because if I know things are going to be sad, I do not, unless I'm really in the mood to be devastatingly devastated, I don't want to read things that are going to make me sad, because it takes a long time to pull myself back up to be like neutral. But yet I picked that book up and read it in one sitting, and I thought it was going to be devastating. I was aware, but the level of horrors I was going to experience, I was underprepared for. Right out the get, 10 pages in, I said, oh, I can't do this. Favorite and least favorite character. I guess I would have to say my favorite would be like Ilya, if we're really answering these. Especially in the long game, not that I like him suffering, but I like his character development. And it feels like it's just, I think it's a good character. My least favorite has to be, here's the thing. I'm gonna say Violet/Delilah from like the Venom series or whatever from Rena Kent. Because I'm realizing I do not like the way Rena Kent writes her hetero romances. I just don't. Actually, I'll take that back, because I did like Ava because she's a brat. And that vibes with me. There's something about the internal monologues, and I don't know what it is. I can't tell if that like I'm being prejudiced against them, like a bias against them for like whatever. Their internal monologues kill me. I can't stand it. Versus like the men, I feel like they probably do have the same monologue, but for some reason it doesn't bother me as much. And I don't know why. But I'm like, I read romances. I read hetero romances all the time. So it's not just, it's gotta be the way she's writing them. I just don't like her vibe. For sure. Anyways, so sorry to those who like the Sweet Venom or the Venom whatever series. Shocking moments. Every moment in Sunrise on the Reaping was shocking. So it has to go with that. But I'll also give you a book that I was pleasantly surprised by and shocked me, which is I Was a Teenage Slasher. Here's the thing. I have context to slashers. I know how they kind of go, but because I don't know every single convention to a slasher, so I was a little shocked, a little odd at what was happening towards the end of the book. But then what actually on top of that is diabolical is the peanut butter. And if you know, you know. And I was sobbing. I was sobbing. I wasn't prepared for that. So, favorite couple, I don't have one. I don't know. Not my vibe. Best written, I don't think I'm qualified to tell you what the best written book is that I've read, because I also feel like there is a standard for good writing, but also half of the time I honestly feel like it's a vibe. And so I don't have a best written. Most wrecked. I don't really often recommend books to anyone unless they ask me for like, they're like, I'm looking for a romance. And then I'm like, well, what do you like in your romance? Do you like enemies to lovers? Are you insta love? How like you like it smutty? You don't want it smutty. You want closed door? You like fantasy? What kind of fantasy? You like high fantasy? You like, you know, like urban fantasy? What are we doing? Right? So I don't ever really rec anything because I like people to give me feedback. And then I kind of try to see, well, like I liked this sci-fi, or well, I really enjoy this and I enjoyed this because of this. And just so you know, here's what I really liked about the book, which I think the book does well. Take it or leave it. So there's nothing for me to rec. Truly, I got nothing. My favorite covers are Ascension, because it's gorgeous, and also To Clutch a Razor, also gorgeous. I do wish the cover of To Clutch a Razor was in fact like foiled, like When Among Crows. I see that it didn't do as well as we thought it did, according to the publisher, which is a shame because I love that book series. Give me a third installment, please. My favorite adaptation has to be the only adaptation I've seen this year, which is Heated Rivalry. Y'all, it's so good. I genuinely think it's the first time, and I haven't seen a lot of adaptations, so take everything I said with a grain of salt. I think it's the first time that you can watch / read either one first, and it doesn't ruin your experiencing the others. I really do feel like they are quite compatible, and I feel like if you really love the books, when you watch it on TV, you understand that there are things that have to be changed because like watching something and reading something are two different experiences, but they make sense. They make sense. And I just think it's really well. And also too, like, I feel like if you just watch it, you're missing out on a lot of context. However, I do feel like Connor and Hudson are really great actors in the sense that like their faces can move. And I'm sure they like took this very seriously, as they should. And you can read a lot of emotion in their eyes. And I feel like that also helps because you don't have the internal monologue that's happening, which is why the books are always better, because you know exactly what someone's thinking on the inside. But you can look at Connor and Hudson and you can see their like inner worlds almost. Like it's so good, dude. So good. I like cannot wait for season 2 and season 3. And I hope that if they get more funding, that they still use, like, they still take the same amount of care that they took in, like, the framing and the shooting and the lighting to create, like, the ambience that they did in the season 1. Like, I'm so pumped. It's so good. And as of filming this, we're a little over 24 hours out from the finale. And I'm pumped. I can't wait. They just have done such a good job. Books that made me cry. Here's the list. Sunrise on the Reaping, The Long Game, I Was a Teenage Slasher, Elegy for the Undead, and then Fable for the End of the World. I cried throughout every single one of those, non-stop. Every single one. A book that made me laugh has definitely gotta be Lights Out, clearly. Because the audiobook, like everybody knows, is fucking hilarious. But the other book that made me laugh, not because it was like actually hilarious, but because I found this bit in this book so funny. So obviously I told you one of my favorite Backlist books was God of Fury, which introduced me to the Rena Kent universe of it all. And here's the thing. She's got like 37 books, and I popped in at like book 35, 34, 33, right? So I have made my way through the list of things. And this is how I know that I don't think I'm a fan of her like hetero romances and only her MMM romances. So in this time of figuring out, she did a spinoff, because after God of Fury is technically God of War, which I have read at one point, and that's why I like Ava, because she's a brat and she tells Eli all about himself, and I approve that messaging. But the spin-off is also like Kiss the Villain, which has a character that's in The Legacy of Gods, right? But then within the Kiss the Villain, you get a side character for 2.5 seconds that leads you into this like hockey college dark mafia thing, right? So you start with Beautiful Venom, and you meet our characters. You got Jude, you got Kane, you got Preston. They're bros. They come from mafia families. They own this tiny town. The first book is Kane and Delilah's book, right? They fall in love, yada, yada. And through this time, Preston is kind of an ass to Delilah the whole time. He does like a tiny bit where he won't call her Delilah because he finds her annoying. So he's like, what's up, Daisy? What up, Daffodil? What are you doing, Dorothy? What's up, Diane? Like all these things. And it's like a tiny, tiny, tiny part of the bit. But then you get to book 2, which is Violet and Jude's book. And Preston befriends Violet and even gives her like a nickname that is appropriate for Violet, like, hey V, and he has like lunch with her, and he has like a special interest in her. Sometimes he's a little flirty, which obviously like messes with like the dynamic of Jude, because he's like, why are you flirting with my girlfriend? And then Kane's like, why can't you call Delilah her name? Because the entire book that he's befriending and being kind to Violet, he's over here like, Daphne, could you get over it? What'd you say, Dorothy? Are you shitting me, Daisy? Like, never. And obviously Delilah reacts every time. And I don't know why, but the bit in the second book was so much funnier. And it was the only thing I could cling to, because that book, the plot for that book is unhinged. And like, I know dark, smutty, mafia romances are in fact unhinged. But sometimes I just want to be like, can we break it down? Must it be this level of unhinged and nonsensical business? Like, there was a point where there was a point where obviously the couple's broken up, because of course they have to break up. It's a conflict, whatever. And Delilah tells her bestie Violet, like, you think I like? They're like, Kane murders people? I like don't, but like, you know, he just like, but I love him. And I know you love Jude. And it's just like, sometimes they're just boys. Sometimes they're just boys. They're just boys. And I'm just like... No, let's all, like, you sure, let's live in this fictional world, but I cannot handle one character saying to another, I do mind that he, like, murders, but, like, it's not, like, that bad. Like, he's just a boy, you know? He's just a boy in the mafia. It's just, like, okay, we don't have to actually acknowledge that. Let's not acknowledge it, actually. But I was like, oh, my God. The plot of that book is ridiculous and stupid, and really solidified that I cannot stand the hetero romances that she writes, except for God of War. And that's it. And I'm looking forward to the back-to-back romances, for sure. Bring them. Is it March and April yet? Not March. March and June yet? Please. Let's see. New favorite author? Girl, I don't got one. Oh, and best nonfiction? I don't really have one, but I did read 2. My goal was 12. Technically, I read 3 if you count the poem. So here are the 2 nonfictions I read. And they were great. And I would recommend that you read them for your continuing education. Yeah. Anyways, that's my year in review in books. I hope you enjoyed. If you didn't, live your best life. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye. JK, I'm back. Because I forgot to tell you what my favorite book was for 2025, which is I Was a Teenage Slasher. The reasonings for this, because it took me by surprise. I didn't think it was my first Stephen Graham Jones. I didn't know what to expect. I was unsure. I had read the synopsis like 6 months ago, so I was like, whatever. Hopped into it, was like, I'm just going to read the first couple pages. I got to page like 200 before I looked up and saw the clock, and I was like, oh my God. And I was like, oh, I'm immersed. This is wild. So then, that took me by surprise. I also thought it was going to be a little bit more like scary reading it, and it wasn't very scary at all. It was just like, I don't know how to describe it. Like, it's a slasher book, and like slashing happens, but it doesn't feel scary. And so I enjoyed that aspect of it. And I kind of feel like I was kind of in on a bit for a little bit, because I do, since I am aware of like the conventions around these books, I was having fun keeping up with like, yep, of course they just like magically disappear. And also like the book kind of telling on itself was also fun at the same time. And towards the end, I didn't really know what was happening between him and the bestie. And I was like, I don't really get what this like conflict is. And then when I realized that like, obviously, you know, I don't want to spoil it or anything, because I think it's a really good book. I was just like, that's actually really fucking sad. And then when he does like, you know, he does what he does with peanut butter, it's just like also really fucking sad. Like the whole, like it's just, it's sad. And I just was surprised by like the pacing of the book, the vibe of the book, how much I actually enjoyed it, how much I like still can remember like sitting there and being like entranced by the book. And it's made me want to pick up more like Stephen Graham Jones. So yeah, that was my favorite book. Now I think I'm out for real. Bye.